It's simply astounding. Workshops in Pakistan are handcrafting three-phase motors. Though they lack production lines, the three-phase motors they produce are more cost-effective. The motor casing is made using sand molds they create through sand casting, a traditional method that ensures high-quality castings. To compact the sand molds, they press and pack the sand tightly, with skilled craftsmen using their feet to tamp down the sand, quickly filling the molds from the inside. Then, they bring in a large sandbox and fill it with the mold sand. During this process, they must also fill the interior with mold sand, so the craftsmen continually tamp it down. Once the sandbox is complete, they can start making the upper layer of the sandbox. Before doing so, they dig a pouring hole in the middle. To prevent the sand molds from sticking together, they first evenly sprinkle a layer of release agent, then add another layer of mold sand on the surface, and place another sandbox on top. By filling it with mold sand, and then compacting it, they create a standard sandbox. The hole in the middle of the sandbox is for pouring molten iron. At this point, the sandbox is almost ready for demolding. The craftsmen remove the shell model from inside, and after ensuring the mold sand hasn't collapsed, they just need to install the cover. Next, they prepare the raw materials for making the motor casing. Scrap iron, heated continuously in a furnace, turns into molten iron. The craftsmen first pour the molten iron into a pouring bucket. This molten iron, reaching over 1,000 degrees, is poured into the prepared sandbox. To prevent the motor casing from deforming, they allow the molten iron to cool slightly before removing the casing from inside the sandbox. Despite the high temperature of the sandbox, they have no choice, as their production technology is limited. Once the motor casing is made, it cools for 3 hours. Then, it undergoes more detailed and precise finishing. Although the workshop's environment is basic, the chucks they use to secure the motor casing are specialized. These handcrafted three-phase motors are definitely bestsellers. During the process, they skillfully cut to the right size. The motor cover also needs to be machined on a lathe. After making the accessories for the motor casing, the craftsmen clean the rust off the iron core's surface, enhancing the core's electrical conductivity. After grinding the grooves inside the iron core, they install insulating paper. They cut it into long strips according to standard sizes, and skillfully install it into the grooves. The craftsmen must wind by hand, and although they lack high-end automated winding equipment, their skills are excellent. They install the wound copper wire inside the iron core. To prevent short circuits between coils, they protect them with insulating paper. The experienced craftsman winds skillfully, neatly organizing the connectors between each coil group and winding them in order. For securing the wire ends, the craftsmen use resistance welding. White insulating strips prevent short circuits inside. They skillfully arrange the copper wires into the casing's terminal box. Then, they reinforce the inner coils with insulating paper. On the outside of the coils, the craftsmen evenly pour insulating varnish, improving the coil's insulation. For installing the bearings on the motor cover, they use a low-end press, which is very efficient. The rotor inside is also handcrafted, so the craftsmen use a lathe to machine the main shaft to the right size. Once the rotor is finished, they just need to use wooden blocks to install it inside the motor. After ensuring there are no issues with rotation testing, they can assemble the cover. Next, they can start the motor for testing. After verifying the running current with a specialized meter, and to prevent the motor casing from rusting, they spray a layer of anti-rust paint on the surface. Now, the three-phase motor is complete. What do you think of the craftsman's manufacturing process?